Okay, so let's begin. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm here with Joakim Olsson from Findify or Findify. Today we're going to cover the topic of search and personalization and e-commerce, which is absolutely essential. And in my conversations with Joakim, who is a partner of Everflow, he shares very interesting insights. And I thought, it's a good idea to invite you, Joakim, and so you can share this with our clients and our community. So welcome.
Thanks a lot for having me. And in the previous conversation we had, things have just blurred out, a lot to talk about. So looking forward to this.
Yeah, that's awesome. So something that was like struck me when we start talking the first times is your story and tell me something share with the audience something about how you started in this world and what is it like you started your career, something about yourself.
Absolutely. So I used to work as a management consultant, and as part of that, I had a 2 years time being down in Singapore, starting up our Asian office. And I really enjoyed the time, building an organization, getting the things in place and being part of that journey. And also the thing I liked from management consulting is the problem solving, the constant problem solving at fast pace. So after spending 6.5 years doing that, I thought, where can I find this kind of mix, building organization, building something from a low base and still being close to problem solving. And I found e-commerce and this entire space being extremely interesting. So that's when I joined Findify approximately 2.5 years ago.
So I guess that moving from the management consulting, and I spent some years in consulting, in business process consulting, not management consulting, but I know this like quite a jump, right? Going from management consulting to the startup world. What kind of motivate you to do that?
There are many things that are not the same, but I think at the core, working with smart people, working with solving hands-on problems is a lot of similarities. And moving to Findify, what struck me was the product from the start. I was like, wow, I was impressed by the product. I was visiting my favorite e-commerce stores and I was seeing that search is a big pain point. I hadn't recognized how much a poor search actually is decreasing the experience. So I thought, why not? Let's give it a try. And also found it very interesting that they, up to that point, focused 90% on the product and building product, while nothing really on the commercial side and the more of the things that I could contribute with. So I coming from an environment where everyone is quite similar with a similar business profile. Everyone was very different from me, and we could complement, or I could complement the team in a nice way. So that was probably the main reasons.
That's awesome. And here you are with the Findify team. So for those who don't know what you guys do or not familiar with search, why don't you give us like a pitch, very high level view of what is it that you guys do for e-commerce stores, just to give the context?
Absolutely. So we talk about search within e-commerce, and that could, of course, cover a lot of different areas. But here today specifically, I want to talk about on-site search. So you're visiting a store and you're engaging with the search on that store specifically. That's what we talk about when we talk about on-site search. In general, we at Findify also do collection pages and recommendations, the kind of other people who bought that, or these are our hot sellers, or these are recommended for you, or complement the look, etc. But search was the first, and also the one I find most interesting since it's such a complex area.
Nice. And based on what you say, I know that search is not new. It's been around for some time. but it has evolved a lot, right? And so if you think about search today for e-commerce, what do you think is the state of search at high level?
I agree with you that it's been around for quite some time, but it's still surprisingly immature. People know that there are pain points related to search, but looking at the bulk of merchants, the majority is still running with, basic built-in platform capabilities or poor elastic search wrappers or something home built that worked at one stage in the store's development that becoming bigger becomes quite a hassle to maintain and grow with. So there's still a lot to be done within search and a lot of people not actually experiencing good search.
Nice. So this might be like a pretty obvious question, but I always love to start with the basics and not assume that everyone on the audience really understands or have a previous experience with this. I'm thinking from the perspective of I have a e-commerce store. I'm the founder. I know about my business. Maybe I'm not a marketing expert. Maybe I'm not a marketing tech stack expert, but I know very well about my business. So dumb it down for me is like why good search is important.
Absolutely. So in my book, at the core, I find it quite strange to spend a lot of money to attract shoppers to your site. And then once they are actually on your site, not finding the products that would resonate with them or that they find relevant. So I think that's really the starting point. If they're not going to convert or if there are barriers for them to convert when actually on site, maybe spending a little bit of effort into making that part of the journey easier will convert bigger on the totality. And if you look at it, there are risks with bad search because people have hugely short attention span. We usually talk about 5-year-old with an iPad in their hand. They're clicking, and when they can't find anything interesting, they go somewhere else or they change app or they basically churn from your experience. And it's the same with shoppers. If they can't find what they're looking for, they're going to pretty quickly go away. So that's the big risk. On the other hand, there is also a big upside that if you manage to serve them products that are relevant, searching shoppers are converting 2 to 3 times more than browsing. We've seen cases over 5 times more, which is really about, when you actually search, you're forced to focus on one of the interests you have. And then you're actually pursuing that path. And if you find products that are relevant for you, the chance of you converting is a lot higher.
Yeah, that's one of the things that when we started our early conversations about having a partnership between our companies, that something that I immediately made a connection is, the cost of client acquisition, it will only continue to increase, right? It's very expensive to finally acquire a client, bring the guy to your website, and once you're there, basic mistakes. You can say it's a basic mistake, right? Not being able to display the right product that is relevant will really imply that you wasted that money. And again, client acquisition is expensive. You don't want to waste the money. But there is a second aspect, which is we all know that a big chunk of profitability lies in your ability to do cross sales. Sometimes you have these products that are good sellers with a very competitive price, thin margins, but you're really going to increase the overall profitability of that first transaction and the lifetime value of that client and profitability of that client when you can cross-sell on these other items where you have a better margin. And I see how companies rely on basic things like I'm going to offer a product when you click checkout, right? Hey, do you want to buy this? But probably at that point, it lacks the context, right? It lacks the relevancy. And this is something I like the ways you solve it. It's like if I am looking for attire for a special party or for a special event, that is the moment where you can suggest me, why you take this bow, or why you buy these shoes. So bringing that context means that the cross sale can be more effective, and that has a direct impact not only in revenue but in profit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I see that you guys do that. That ability to bring the right products, the right mix into what is being displayed to the client. So now the shopping experience is more personal. It makes more sense to them, right?
No, absolutely. And I think there are different, several important things in what you're saying. In at the core, you have a moment of truth, and if you're able to serve relevant products for the shopper at that moment, they are much, much, much more likely to actually convert on it. But also from a business point of view, yes, I want to show the most relevant product for the shopper, but I also want to show relevant products for my business. So ensuring that there is actually a mix of these two objectives in there, and being able to serve up additional products to serve that need as well in cross-sellings, bundle packages, or even upsellings to just increase your margin once you found something that is good. But it can be even better serving that at the fingertips.
So we're talking search and personalization. Both together is what makes the difference in uplifting conversions, right?
Absolutely. Then you can also complement that with the ability to offer recommendations once shoppers are starting to engage with the first product. So you search your way through it, you're served a relevant product, you enter that product, and then you're matching that with other relevant products complementing it, and ensuring that is an automated way of selecting those, so that you as a merchant don't have to spend all of your time just merchandising, manually curating a good experience, but it's going to take so much time. And the risk is also that it's not going to be super relevant for each and every one, because one size doesn't fit all.
I like that. So now we're thinking about search and personalization, and there is so many things that I read about how different is the experience and engagement of users in mobile versus desktop. So if we try to translate this into what you guys do for an e-commerce store, how search and personalization is different in mobile versus desktop? Is there a difference? Does it make sense to talk about it?
No, absolutely. And especially, now when mobile is the major source for most merchants, and overall that's where you're earning your money, it makes a lot of sense. And I would say to some extent, there are similarities. Take desktop, convenience is a important factor. And the running joke, if you want to bury a body, put it on the second page of Google, because no one's going to find it. And it's kind of the same with e-commerce and the product servings you see in your store on desktop, but it's even more so on mobile. So, looking from the start of the journey at the autocomplete, when you start engaging with search, you see some search suggestions and you see some product suggestions, and you click your way through that. On desktop, they're used, and they are used approximately the same amount, depending a little bit on industry, but people use both. On mobile, they don't really want to type, because typing on mobile, it takes time. So you rely a lot more on your search suggestions. They need to be served, I think, 26 times more they are used on mobile. So serving relevant search suggestions, ensuring that they lead to actual products that comes in the next step of the results is important. And then also, of course, to show relevant products in the order of the products that are served, and having all of these at your fingertip.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. I like that number, 26 times more, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But I can just go to myself and see, whenever I'm engaging on mobile, I don't want to spend a lot of time. I want it quickly served. So, if convenience is important on desktop, convenience is important on mobile, and just making it simple.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and it makes absolute sense. And it's also true that a very common behavior from shoppers is that they will start browsing or doing the first kind of a research of product availability and options on mobile, but then they go and complete transactions later at night on their desktops, right? So being able to be very consistent on that experience of both platforms or both contexts, it makes only so much sense, right? Because you want to make sure that when they explore something on the mobile, then they go to the desktop to finally purchase something. They don't found themselves in a situation where they say, "What was this? I have these pieces where I build my puzzle, and it's hard to find." And I mention this because I've seen many e-commerce stores that they have a kind of a simplified version, and the way they display the catalog of products on mobile is towards simplification and make it super simple. But then when you jump to the desktop, there are slightly changes, but it's more complicated, and people have a hard time. And it's like, why I can't find it? It was here. So they go back to the mobile, and if they really want something, they will find it there and then try to find it on the desktop. But that's friction, and friction means drop sales. Maybe they will say, you know what, I'm going to this other store I know and complete my transaction there. So yeah, important, super important. So I asked you something at the very beginning, which is like, search is not new, but search has changed a lot, and especially with the full digitalization of the retail space that just accelerated, and all these platforms like BigCommerce, Shopify that have democratized access, right? It's like everyone can launch their store and do amazing stuff. So that has 4 different changes of how search and personalization is performed. So what are the most important things that you can say that have changed in search and personalization the last 3 years in the e-commerce space?
Mm-hmm. If we start the journey, even a little bit more back in time, so say 2014 when we started, at that time, people or merchants were using search tools that wasn't really built for e-commerce. It was built for general text search, which meant you could find relevance, but the big problem was that it didn't really differ between where did you actually find that information. So if you get a hit on the title, it scored as well as if you found it in a description or in a field far down. So this just, basic weighting of where does this information actually come from didn't really exist to a large extent. So that's the basic that got into place, and the reason why we built our own search engine built for eCom. I would say that's, during the last few years, the big differences that have come is a lot around control. Being able to control the entire experience, the entire front end, following that merchants are finding more and more specific positions in the market, and therefore requiring and needing that their capabilities and functions actually should serve their specific niche in the market, their kind of shoppers behaving in different ways, searching with different terms, expressing themselves differently. You also require more control how to this kind of mix of what's relevant for the shopper and what's relevant for me, and how to find that sweet spot, but on a aggregated bulk level. So I don't need to do it too specific, too detailed, taking a lot of time. I would also say that integrations with the big platforms, being able to customize the front-end experience to be fully in line with my overall brand experience has changed a lot and become a lot easier. And then, of course, the growth of personalization and individual relevance is also something that's been added on top and grown a lot during recent years.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting topic, because it's not uncommon today for DTC brands, and especially for product brands, maybe not as much for subscription-based business, but for product brands, it's not uncommon these days to see to see that the companies, the e-commerce store having a presence on a Shopify store or a BigCommerce store, and they also have a presence on Amazon. So I have my dog playing around me. Sorry about that song in the background. So you see that presence in multiple places, and so guaranteeing experience is a big topic, right?
No, definitely. And moving forward, we'll probably see even further integrations. We probably see the move that's already started, talked about 10, 15 years back with the omni-channel approach and the multi-touch point. I don't see a reason why that wouldn't continue. And with the growth of the multi-platforms, there is a lot of things happening in the space, but that things are going to get more integrated, easier, more control. I think that's a given.
Yeah. Super interesting. I'm thinking a lot when you're talking, and there is a lot of implications. So when you talk about personalization today, everyone mixes, wants to leverage the opportunity of personalization with AI, right? AI gives you the unique opportunity to take data at scale and really bring the right decisions or the right actions to personalize at scale, right? So does AI has any role in this personalization and search as you guys see it and implement for your customers today?
No, definitely. Both, in a language processing, but essentially in individual personalization. I think that the entire term personalization is overused. I know a competitor, for example, they're claiming personalization when showing past searches. Might be relevant. Is it really personalized? Yeah, maybe not. Let's not go too deep down that lane. But when I talk about personalization, I think it's important to note that it's about individual relevance. So what am I actually seeing as a shopper when I engage with the site? And the way we handle that is looking at you, when you visit a store, coming into the store and starting to engage with the products, you give a lot of information. So through your actions, you're clicking on things, you're not clicking, skipping other products, you're putting products in cart and you're buying them. And all of this is related or can be mixed with the product information that is beneath. So, pushing 220 different factors into the algorithm, starting to create a profile based on your behavior. So, okay. This shopper was really engaging with products that had a lot of reviews, bright colors, and quite relatively cheap. While this shopper liked the more premium priced, it was multicolor, and it was from these categories with a tendency to look at male products. Should they be served the same products when searching for the same term? No. So if both of these were searching for, say, t-shirt, the ranking and the products that should be shown for them should be different, because people have a tendency, they have a huge bias to click on the first products that are shown. We've seen that 21% of the shoppers are clicking on the first product in the grid, so position 1, and 70% are clicking on the 8 first products. So if you're not showing any relevant products among these, you're not going to convert, and people are going to lose their attention and move somewhere else. And therefore, the order is super important to actually serve based on the individual and what they are interested in.
I love that those numbers are really meaningful. And I was thinking when you were saying that the overuse or the kind of the multiple understanding of what personalization means. And I always remember something that Google Search started doing very early is for SEO is trying to look at the intent of the user, right? Mm-hmm. And I would argue that a shopper might be visiting a website today for buying something that is for a gift, for a very special one. And during that search, during that moment, that person might cater to a more expensive set of products because that's what they're looking for. And maybe in another moment, the same shopper will visit the website and with different intentions, right, with a different intent, right? And they will start looking sometimes like, I just want, commuting clothing, right? Something simple to go to the office. I can use, basics for every day, but it's going to be different search. And so bringing the right products, the right product mix, and the right suggestions, recommendations based on that intent and the content is where AI shines. And I remember seeing a demo of your product, and I love that because I remember testing that thing. Is like, now I'm looking for something cheaper and see how all the recommendations align with what I'm trying to achieve at that moment in that search versus when I was have a different intention. So I would agree with you that, it's less than personalization and more of being context sensitive and relevance with the intention of the user in that moment.
I couldn't agree more. And I sometimes talk about search as a small keyhole where on the one side of the door, you have the shopper with all of the intentions. They have a lot of thoughts. This is what I really want. And then they push the information through the keyhole to the data feed that also have a lot of information where you can match with a lot of different variables and values. But 65% are just typing one word. Not even, it's not even a description. It's most commonly just the product. So how to interpret that one word, because, all of these shoppers are not going to have the same intention, but they're not going to tell you with words. So you need to look at something else, and actions always speak louder than words. So looking at what are they actually seeking for, what are they engaging with, tells you a lot more than the actual information they're handing you in the search bar.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And this reminds me something that Johnny Ives, the mythical designer in Apple, that was the right hand for Steve Jobs. There is this very controversial concept that he repeated for everyone who wanted to listen. That is, they don't care about what the users are asking for. They care about what users are doing, right? Yeah. So maybe people are asking a lot of things, but then you see what they're actually clicking, and that is more telling and give you all the clues. So so that's the context for AI in search, and that's how you can really unlock that value and make sure the shoppers have a better experience. So like we spend this first part of this chat kind of bringing context of search, what search can do today and why it's important. But now, and this is for a founder, right? The owner of this DTC brand or e-commerce store. Now let's move into more of the life of an e-commerce manager, right? The person who has to be running the operation. And they have a lot of things, right? Because it's like a circus with a lot of arenas playing at the same time. It's very complex. So how does, if you have to think about the services you guys do and the way you solve this problem, how does it change the life for me, an e-commerce manager? What is different for me if I start using this? What would be kind of the first things that I can expect to see happening other than, let's say, an uplift in conversions?
So conversion, relevance drives conversions. That's, of course, what you need to mention. But let's go beyond that. And I think that most important is efficiency. I know I was speaking with a merchant that had 26 different stores, and they had 10 different merchandisers, basically manually curating every single category page to be in a specific order. And they had to go through each and every one of these 26 sites, every category. And when they got to the end of the list, they had to start over because it was so long time ago that they actually went to the first one. And just showcasing what automatization through the algorithm, but also by being able to apply rules wide through the site, being specific where you need to be specific, but for most cases, pushing things smarter. I think that's the main benefit, being able to save time, drive more important things like campaigns and strategies across site, then to details try to curate in a one size doesn't really fit all but good enough, and then instead handing that over and getting more of a amplification of what you're doing rather than a tiny detailed controlling workflow. So I think that's the real benefit there for a e-commerce manager point of view.
Yeah, it must be like when you have so many categories, it must be like a hard job, because ultimately, I don't think you're gonna have so much time to really rethink how you do that, right? What's gonna go first, come first in the page, and what's the result? I mean, it's crazy thinking. Maybe if you have one product, one core product, and two cross sales, maybe you can do that, right? Like these simple funnel stores, but whatever you have more options, you can't manage, and that affects the bottom line. So
no, and I think it's, I of course recognize that some experiences are built to be like, this needs to be related, or I always want this one product up top, or I'm having a collaboration with a influencer, so I need to push their products, or I want to get rid of these these products that have a low stock or high stock. But then, focusing on these, applying a rule to boost these high store, or my products that I have a collaboration with, or the ones that I have a campaign, and doing that rule-based allows you to do it a lot smarter and cross the site instead of sitting there and too detailed, maybe sometimes spending a lot of time.
Yeah, so that's an interesting topic, like, setting the rules. So that's telling me that if I have that flexibility on setting the rules, I can kind of drive the relevance and context and personalization that I get either for a product-based business or a subscription-based business, right? So there is no kind of a limitation, and keep thinking like, well, maybe if I am in the cosmetics industry, and probably some search is telling me that this person is looking for product for a particular skin tone. And so probably skin tone is available in a rule, super important in the portfolio. So having the ability to personalize and drive these rules with my deep understanding as the e-commerce manager for this e-commerce store of what is important for shoppers, I can then put this and make sure that it gets deployed and automated on scale without me having to be like spending a lot of time that probably don't have trying to make the experience better. So yeah, it only makes a lot of sense. So if you have to probably you can share some results that you've seen on companies doing this, like, I don't know, before and after, or any number you want to share?
No, absolutely. So we have, of course, run a number of different A/B tests. What we've seen is a total uplift of store conversion between 7 to 29%, which is, it's quite a wide number. What does that relate to? Of course, what was the state before implementing? What does the industry look like? How do the different shoppers behave? Take the latest A/B test we were running. There we saw a increase of 101% in search conversion. So actually doubling your conversion in the search and getting a ROI of 26 times. Pretty neat, adding a system that makes your life easier.
That's a big number. And so let's say that you mentioned A/B test, and it makes absolute sense, right? Because if you're going to use, you have to make sure you're using the right rules, the right configuration, run A/B test, etc. But if you have to think about a store who wants to start with this thing now, how long does it take until the guys say, okay, we're seeing improvement, this is working for us? So is this, giving a sense of a time frame typically?
No, absolutely. And I think it's important to also note that the system doesn't require you to do a bunch of configurations. There is a possibility for whenever you want to drive tactical reasons, but for the personalization, it's trained already when released on the site. We have a lot of anonymous data where we trained it. It's not fully learned the behavior of your specific clients on site. So depending on traffic, say that we have a medium-sized merchant with 100,000 visitors, it takes somewhere 3 to 4 weeks for the algorithm to have learned that site-specific audience. Then you have other things like the search, which starts to kick in directly. So the ability to find more relevant products based on any kind of field in the feed. So the ranking, it's good enough when it comes, but it becomes better. But the search capabilities are already there from the start.
That's interesting. And I know 3-4 weeks, if you tell me for anything you want to deploy in your marketing tech stack, is fast enough, right? Because
it's hard to see that it's going to get that much faster. So, but that's always a strive. You always want to push it a little bit faster, a little bit easier, a little bit more controllable.
Yeah, and I understand what you say, that you're building something not only for what you have today, but you're also kind of creating the foundations to allow your business to operate in a different way. Because if you are a store who's going to be bringing seasonal products, or we have novelties, for whatever reason, or promotions, you need to have that kind of a foundation that allows you to keep changing your portfolio and knowing that the machine is going to be working for you, making them relevant for your clients. So I'm thinking that this is like the two parts job. One is deploy for what you have now, but also create this core capability of your store to be able to bring relevancy in every interaction with users, regardless of the products you keep changing over the time, right?
No, absolutely. And I think that's an important aspect of, when talking about this individual personalization, that it's not about the algorithm seeing which products am I actually engaging with, but looking beyond the product and see what are the attributes tied to this product. So in the entire feed, what are the commonalities between the product that the shopper is engaging with, so that when you keep adding new products into your feed, those are not going to be unknown, because you already know that, shopper A, he seemed to like this product that has the same attributes as this one, then we should be serving that one. So it's not forgotten and deprioritized just because there is no historical numbers, because in e-commerce, you will keep adding products all the time. So you can't have a system reliant on the actual product, but it needs to understand what's behind that product.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we just got a question from one of the attendees, and let me say, it says, what are the most valuable analytic companies should look at when it comes to search? So what to measure? What are the numbers that should be telling you that things are working well or not?
Absolutely. So at the core, you should, of course, tracking your conversion and seeing how does this correspond before and after I do some implementations or new configurations or enhancements to my search. But then it's also very interesting to look at search refinements. How many people that engage with my search are doing a secondary search, indicating that they couldn't find anything the first time they were looking? What is the engagement time with my shoppers when actually looking at my products? Are they leaving quickly? Indication the relevance wasn't that big in the product that I was serving. And that's the hard kind of number, seeing am I actually serving relevant products? But there's also a lot more behind it, where you can learn for different purposes. So say that I'm looking at my search and I'm finding out what are my zero results, meaning what are the queries people are searching for that they're not finding matches with, which could be due to the fact that it's something that you're actually not having in store. Could be a good indication if a lot of people are looking for this to add something. Or it could be that you actually have a good substitute. It could be from another brand, it could be from another category, but there is no way for you to promote that when the initial query is typed. And then you can do a simple rerouting, adding a synonym, adding the shoppers, and whenever they're searching for that query, they're led to other products that you actually have in store. And I think that's my favorite one, being able to lead them through the journey, finding the relevant products and telling what should I be getting more.
And you mentioned something. Just have another question, and that is related to one of the things you just mentioned. The question is, how do typos or using synonyms affect the quality of the search result?
I think that's it's a good question. Language decoding, understanding what the shopper is intending with their query is core. So typos, they are going to happen. People are writing very quickly. So you need to have a system that is actually correcting that and having a spelling tolerance to lead you in the right direction. Because otherwise, they're not going to find what they're looking for. In the same way, synonyms is a great tool to use in order to add flows, to add, if you don't have a perfect data set, I'm searching for pants, but you only have trousers in your store, add a two-way synonym. But you can also adding one-way synonyms to lead me when I'm looking for a Samsung. You don't have a Samsung, but you're leading me to the Apple. It's not a technical synonym, but it leads me in the right way. And from a shopper flow perspective, it's absolutely right, because I get to find products when I'm actually searching.
Yeah, and based on what you say, I see another question that enter. But before I read that question, let me ask you a follow-up question. So in a way, if a company has a strategy around SEO and they're trying to figure out what is the best way to bring those guys to the store, and once in the store, they use something like Findify to be able to bring relevant context. I think they're not like two separate universes. I think that whatever you learn from their browsing on the website and the words and the synonyms that work can also feed back on being able to be more effective on SEM and SEO on the other side of the search business with Google, or because they are intimately related. Ultimately, it's a reflection of the customer intention and what they're looking for, how they're finding you, or what they expect to find in your website, right?
Absolutely. And I always find it interesting to keep track of what are the terms people are actually using. How does the behavior change over time? You can spot trends pretty well by looking at how people are actually expressing themselves, what is trending at the moment, what has decreased a bit. They're given that it's expressed intention through the search bar, which you don't get that much of in the store. You can look, the actions, which is very good to understand what to serve them, but it's hard to aggregate. It's hard to read it for a human person. And for that, search queries is giving one map that at least gives insights into how to actually attract them with the language they are using themselves.
Yeah, but that's absolutely resonates. And in the area of design, there is always this emphasis on the fact that companies try to decode their clients, but most of the time they leave a lot of collective intelligence about what the users need, what the users want, what the user intentions, that is scattered across their clients, the visitors, even their partners, and sometimes they don't listen. So to me, it totally resonates what you guys allow companies to do, because there is this automated use of data using synonyms, rules, and deliver a personalized experience. But there is this kind of a more, let's say, research approach on being able to stop, at least once in a quarter, and look around and say, okay, what is the market telling us? What are the signals? And now you realize that 12% of your visitors are looking for a particular product based on with a particular component, and it's like everyone is looking in cosmetic store with something with like CBD, right? Maybe I need to consider if I need to add to my portfolio that. So sometimes you're trying to see how to make the business growth, and the users are screaming at your face exactly what they need you to do. So this is like a double opportunity, being able to be relevant in the store, but also use that intelligence to actually define your portfolio and category strategy and make your give your business opportunity to grow faster by better serving those clients. So this is like a different angle. So the question, there is another question here. It says, what happens if the search brings no result? How do you redirect the user? And I'm sure they say that because you mentioned the redirection in your previous answer. So how does this happen?
Absolutely. I think if you get a zero result, good spelling tolerance and good synonyms to actually serve the clients what's in your assortment is great. But there will still be cases where I'm actually searching for something that doesn't exist in your store. And for those occasions, I think it's crucial that you don't leave shoppers in a dead end, because every dead end, you need to restart your thought of line, and you need to back off, and etc. It's bad. So what we are doing is that if there is a query that actually doesn't give a match, it's not a typo, it's leading you into a dead end, then we're serving them other relevant products that they can continue the journey on. And that's basically an out-of-the-box feature, or it's not basically, it's out of the box, where you're actually serving that on the search results page instead of a empty page leaving you to dry.
Yeah, like saying, perhaps you might want to consider this option. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, makes absolute sense. Yeah.
Sorry, we couldn't find a match for what you were searching for, but have a look at these great looking ones, and then the journey can continue in that path instead.
Yeah. I've seen Amazon doing many times amazing things when it comes to that, and some other times big misses, but all in all, we can agree that is one of the things they do best, being able to bring whatever you're clicking, bring that relevant content around. And so many times e-commerce owners, store owners, they are trying to reinvent the wheel and say, look, you want to know what and I'm not saying that this is the best experience on the planet, Amazon, but I'm saying that many of the good practices, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Go there, buy something, look what they're doing, look how they're bringing relevance content around it. So well, guess what? You can buy this, and then you can buy this, or you can match it with this product, or you can see these other options. And it's so compelling. Make it so, as you say at the beginning, right? Convenience is still the keyword in the e-commerce.
Absolutely. And I think you can't really be in e-commerce and not knowing what Amazon is doing. You shouldn't be copying everything. You should adapt it to your brand and your experience. But to know what they're doing, it's a given in this industry, given their size and just pure mass.
Yeah. So, I was thinking, am I going to ask this question or not? But this might sound like a crazy question. Is there a type of store that you wouldn't recommend using Findify? Sorry for the curveball.
I don't think it's crazy. I was in a demo some time ago where everything was going very well. We had a good conversation. Liked the people behind, and until the end, we had a good discussion and seemed to be a good fit. And then I was asking, So launching this new website, how many products will you launch with? And they answered 7. I was like, all right, 7,000? No, 7. Okay. Search doesn't really make sense because you can show all 7 products at one screen. The ranking, yeah, maybe a bit, because there's a difference between the ranking and people clicking on the first product, but you can still see all 7 during your first interaction. So no, I wouldn't recommend to go with us because we can't increase performance that much. And I think that's the key factor. Do you need good search? Do you need personalized ranking? You need to have enough complexity in your assortment. What does that mean? Depends. How easy is it to navigate through your categories? How easy is it for the shopper to really understand for them how to find the relevant products? But somewhere 300 to 500. If you have less SKUs than that, there need to be other complexities in the assortment in order to think of having it, because otherwise it doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm glad I asked the question. And it wasn't a curveball for you. So kind of we were getting to the tail end of this, and I try to think, looking at the future, I will ask you to make a kind of a prediction. And so the first question is, there are many questions and conversation about headless, right? And many kind of a philosophical takes on that, right? So some people choose that, and there are some reasons why you might want to, in many cases, choose that. But what is your position around headless?
I found it super interesting. I've heard from conversations merchants looking at headless because it would be cheaper, and I think that if you're going in with that objective, headless you're going to be disappointed. There are many reasons why to pursue, the need for speed, content control, or API first, but cost is not the main driver. From my perspective of headless, we've done 10 headless integrations during last year. I think it's going to continue that trend. I think there will be more clients going headless, but I'm also lacking the industry standard. Each and every product has been different because they're built in a different way. And I'm hoping or predicting that, moving forward, we will be more unified in the headless setups. There will be more standards around it, and also making it even easier to go live, even though it's starting to get to a good point where it's not that hard. And knowing what you need, yeah, why not, if it makes sense?
Yeah, 2 comments. One is I read something that a very smart guy wrote that says the only headless commerce that will survive is the ones that are surrounded by a no coding platform, because the death of headless is, if you are under let's say $100 million a year, maybe 50 in revenue, it is too expensive, right? As you say, you're going to be very disappointed because all the money that you don't put on the service, you would end up, or the particular platform, you wouldn't put in that money likely in development, with all the risks that entails, right? In terms of time to market, agility, etc. Because you end up like thinking that your core business is building the best tech stack, what your core business should be, how you accelerate monetization and scale faster. But then you have that next spot, right? Companies that really are above 100 to, let's say, $500 million, where it will be like a big effort. And we've seen many cases where companies that are using these headless solutions started migrating to leaving headless commerce behind and moving to other standard platforms that are really kind of scaled today, like eCommerce or Shopify Plus. So we've seen that movement, because when you are on that side. You're not a multi-billion dollars company. You're not at $20 million a year. You're in that place in the middle, that chasm in the middle. It is really complicated. It's a lot of energy, a lot of business risk that somehow you're assuming, keeping that infrastructure in the house. So I think that's why it makes sense when you think about some headless solutions that will evolve to still be headless. You can integrate in the rest of your stack in your company, but you still have an easier to use and shorter time to market. Because otherwise, as you say, you're very disappointed, and now you have a development shop in the house, or a big chunk of your budget goes into development effort, and that's not where money should be going, right?
No, I partly agree, but I also find it, I think this is also a European versus American aspect to it, where, serving US is pretty easy in terms of language, in terms of complexity. Yes, you can have shipping parts of it, you can have multiple complexities in it, but you're basically serving one language. While getting into Europe, you might have 26 different languages that you're going to serve, and you're going to serve content for all of these different languages. And then you have a sub-brand that you also want to be serving in the different markets. So you have a double setup for all of that as well, which starts to turn things extremely complex. And when serving that, I think that's one reason why you see it popping up as well, more to reduce complexity in content management for the European or more international scene.
Yeah, super interesting. Yeah, great perspective. Great perspective. Appreciate that. You see, that's why I wanted to invite you here, because I like your take on things and your expertise. So if you think like last question, if you think like 3 years in the future, this is when you bring your crystal ball and tell me, what do you think is going to be like the bigger changes or the most important things, and probably align with what you guys are focusing on?
Wow, this is probably a question we could spend an hour on.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, let's not that. I think that the path ahead is a lot around, I've already mentioned control in all aspects of your merchandising, of your front end, of your different components, your language control. You want more control, but you want it easier. You want it quicker. So some kind of mix of the simplicity, speed, and control, I think is crucial. Maybe that's always been the fact within e-commerce, but I think it's going to accelerate even further. We are betting on it. We're rolling out what we called the seamless Shopify collection sync, which is a set and forget feature where you can download instantly all your category information into Findify, just making it a little bit easier, shaving off a little bit of time. We're finalizing what we call the active sync, getting away from the challenge in our industry where sync time of feed takes time because you need to download a lot of information. And instead, doing it through webhook notifications where you get to know that this product has changed, this product has been added, or this has been removed. Only download that limited part of the information. Then, a little bit beyond that, I think these drivers will continue to be important, but there's also interesting things happening around image search, around voice search. What's going to be the role in the new platform beyond mobile? What are we going to do with that? And running experiments in these fields, I find interesting, a bit gimmicky so far. The things we've seen in the market, the things we have experienced with. Yes, it's cool. It's probably gonna get there in the future, but it's not adding a lot of value today. That's my 2 cents.
I love it.
Another hour. That's fine.
I love it. And thanks for sharing that. So, and I would add to whatever those things that you mentioned, the fact that privacy concerns will only continue to increase. is going to make even more relevant that little moment that you have interacting with that user on your mobile or your desktop site. That moment, the importance of being relevant on that spot it was always important, but is going only to get more important than ever, because it will be harder and harder to get any intelligence around that person or enrich with marketing and information. So that visit, that moment, you have to give your best shot. It will be harder to get identifying information of that people. So you have to give your best shot with the best reading of the intentions to drive that conversion and that moment. So I think that it's only going to get better for you guys in the...
I can only agree. And I find it interesting, like 2.5 years ago, when we started, or when I started, I had a lot more of the conversation of why aren't you guys integrating with Facebook? Why aren't you guys integrating with Google and getting that background data into your platform? While today, it's much more around, you are not integrating with Facebook, right? You're not integrating with Google, right? No, good. That's a good thing. So I think that will probably just continue growing as well.
That is awesome. So, Joakim, we reached the time that we planned for this. Thank you very much for joining us today. I always enjoy my conversations and learning from you. So how can people contact you if anyone wants to reach out to you?
Either through our Findify.io, where you can just book a time with me or my colleagues, or reaching me directly through Joakim. I think the name is here in Zoom, at Findify.io. So awesome. Only the Joakim at Findify. And, happy to talk more. Thank you so much for having me. Always interesting discussing with you, and hope for more in the future.
Likewise. Have a nice day. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you very much.